The Wrath don't have a word for mercy. They have 37 words for hunt, 12 words for kill, and 86 different expressions for the sound prey makes when it finally understands it's about to die. Their language evolved from the wet gurgle of victims and the satisfied clicks of predators. For 8,000 years they have spread across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, and not a single species has survived their attention. This will be no different. Supreme Hunter Grathnak stated, studying the holographic display of the unremarkable blue-green planet. His scales rippled with anticipation, the bioluminescent patterns shifting from deep purple to blood red. The reports indicate primitive technology, minimal defenses, and no unified government. Another easy harvest. The Wrath Council chamber hummed with approval. 15 apex hunters, each bearing the skull trophies of extinct species on their ceremonial armor, clicked their barbed mandibles in ritualistic agreement. The planning hunt was always a formality. After all, no species had ever required a second strategy session. The humans call their outpost New Dakota Mining Colony, Intelligence Hunter Rextel added, scrolling through data streams. Population 177. Defenses minimal, weaponry, primitive projectiles, and mining equipment. Recommendation: standard purge protocol. Grathnak's upper eyes narrowed while his lower pair focused on the colony layout. Send 3 hunters, record everything. I want this in the archives by tomorrow's rising. 3 hunters was overkill, 1 would have been sufficient. The Wrath were 8 feet of evolved killing perfection, exoskeletons harder than most metals, retractable bone blades that could slice through titanium, sensory organs that detected heartbeats from half a kilometer away. Evolution had weaponized every inch of them, from their venomous saliva to the neural toxins secreted from their claws. But the Wraith took pride in thoroughness. The 3 hunters arrived at New Dakota 12 hours later, their ship cloaked in adaptive camouflage that bent light around its sleek, predatory form. They did not announce their presence. They did not demand surrender. Such courtesies were for equals, not food. Hunt leader Kravnor watched the mining colony through thermal optics, identifying patterns, vulnerabilities. The humans moved without purpose or caution, like herbivores grazing in open fields. Some gathered in small groups, consuming nutrients. Others operated machinery, extracting minerals from the planet's crust. None looked up. None sensed death circling. Pathetic, Kravnor hissed to his subordinates. I've hunted smarter livestock. The younger hunters Vextrath and Tralikovar trembled with excitement, their mandibles twitching in anticipation of first blood. This was their proving hunt, the one that would earn them their first skull trophies. I take the large structure, Kravnor ordered. Vextrath, the small dwellings. Tralikovar, the mining pit. Remember the protocol. Kill the strongest first, then the young. The rest will panic, providing more entertaining hunts. The Wrath deployed at sundown, their exoskeletons shifting to match the environment's colors. They moved without sound, passing within inches of human sentries who stared blindly into the gathering darkness. Too easy, Vextrath clicked softly as he slipped into the first dwelling. The first human died without a sound, pierced through the neck by a chitina's blade. The second managed to gurgle. The third had time to look surprised before Vextrath severed his spine. 9 minutes later, 14 humans were dead, their bodies carefully arranged in the ritual position, arms crossed, eyes open, facing their killer's direction. Tralkovar's hunt in the mining pit progressed similarly. The humans working the night shift never saw him coming. Some died at their controls, others were dragged screaming into ventilation shafts, their cries quickly silenced. But in the main complex, something unexpected happened. Jake Wilson was having a bad day even before the aliens showed up. He'd been demoted to night security after punching his supervisor. His ex-wife had just demanded more alimony, and the colony's coffee synthesizer was broken again, so when the lights flickered and the security feeds went dark, he didn't follow protocol. He didn't sound the alarm or call for backup. "Screw this," he muttered, grabbing a half-empty bottle of contraband whiskey from his desk drawer and taking a long pull. "If I'm going to die on this rock, I'm not doing it sober." When the ventilation grate above his desk crashed down, followed by 8 feet of armored alien horror, Jake didn't scream. He didn't run. He looked up at the creature, all blades and glowing eyes and chittering mandibles, and laughed. "Well, you're obviously not from corporate," he said. taking another swig. Want a drink? It's terrible, but it's all we've got. Kravnor froze. In 800 years of hunting, he had catalogued 27 different prey responses. Begging, fleeing, fighting, freezing, bargaining. This wasn't in his experience. The human stood up, wobbling slightly. Look, if you're here to kill everyone, can we speed this up? My shift ends in 20 minutes, and I'd rather not work overtime. The Wrath Hunter raised his blade arm, expecting the human to cower. Instead, Jake tossed the bottle at him. Pure instinct made Kravnor catch it, his razor appendages suddenly occupied with cheap alcohol. Good reflexes, Jake nodded appreciatively. You're probably wondering why I'm not afraid. Truth is, buddy, you're not even in the top 5 worst things to happen to me this week. He reached slowly under his desk. Kravnor should have struck then. Protocol dictated immediate termination of any prey showing unusual behavior, but curiosity, a dangerous and nearly forgotten emotion among the Wrath, made him hesitate. Jake's hand emerged holding not a weapon but a sandwich. Lunch break, he explained, unwrapping it casually. You mind? Low blood sugar makes me cranky. What happened next would rewrite Wrath's understanding of the universe. As Jake bit into his sandwich with one hand, his other hand triggered the mining charges he'd quietly armed through his desk terminal, not in the mining pit, where the explosives were supposed to be, but in the ventilation system through which the aliens had entered. The colony rocked with sequential explosions. Kravnor staggered, his senses overwhelmed by the concussive force. Through smoke and confusion, he saw the human, still chewing, still unnervingly calm, pick up what looked like a primitive cutting tool. Mining laser torch, Jake explained, aiming the device. Industrial grade. Cuts through pretty much anything, including, I'm guessing, whatever you're made of. The beam sliced across Kravnor's primary arm, severing it cleanly. Pain, a sensation the Wrath Hunter had inflicted countless times but rarely experienced, shot through his nervous system. He shrieked, a sound no prey had ever heard before. Jake winced. Yeah, that looked like it hurt. Company policy says I should offer first aid, but honestly I'm not trained for whatever you are. Alarms blared throughout the colony. Jake hit the internal communications system. Attention New Dakota personnel, we have bugs. Big ones. I repeat, big damn bugs in the vents. Protocols are useless. Grab anything that cuts, burns, or explodes, and get creative. Kravnor, clutching his severed limb, backed toward the ventilation shaft. The human made no move to pursue, just took another bite of his sandwich.
You know the funny thing?
Jake said conversationally. I was supposed to be off tonight. Came in to cover for Davis because his kid is sick. So technically I shouldn't even be here for whatever this is. The Wrath Hunter, for the first time in his existence, retreated from prey. As he scrambled up the shaft, he heard the human call after him. Tell your friends we've got terrible hospitality but great workers' comp. Death benefits are pretty good too. On the Wrath command ship, Supreme Hunter Grathnak stared in disbelief at the footage transmission. One hunter dead, another grievously wounded, the third reporting tactical complications. Against primitive mining colonists. Impossible. The human, he growled, rewinding the footage to study Jake Wilson's face. He showed no fear, worse he seemed amused. Intelligence Hunter Rextel's mandibles clicked nervously. Supreme One, the wounded hunter reports that the humans are coordinating, using mining equipment as weapons. 3 Wrath-designed traps have been discovered and disabled, and the humans are, he hesitated, making jokes while they hunt our hunters. The council chamber, for the first time in recorded Wrath history, fell silent with something other than ceremonial respect. We have encountered a problem, Grathnak finally said, his bioluminescence dimming to a troubled blue. The Wrath didn't have a word for fear either. They would need to invent one. The Wrath High Council chamber had never been this loud. 14 apex predators, beings who commanded fear across 3 spiral arms, were shouting over each other like startled prey. Tactical withdrawal is the only option. Send in the devastation fleet. Bioweapons deployed immediately. Study them first. Understand before attacking. Supreme Hunter Grathnak slammed his ceremonial staff against the obsidian floor. The chamber fell silent, every eye cluster fixed on their leader. His bioluminescent patterns pulsed an angry crimson. We are Wrath, he hissed. We do not retreat. We do not panic. We adapt and overcome. Intelligence Hunter Vrextel's mandibles clicked nervously. Supreme One, the human outpost New Dakota, should have been simple. Instead, we lost 2 hunters, and Cravenor returned, diminished. A polite way of saying that the once proud hunt leader now flinched at sudden movements and refused to sleep in ventilation-equipped quarters. The humans are anomalous, Rextel continued, projecting data streams into the chamber's center. Their behavior violates every established prey response model. They don't flee from superior force. They improvise weapons from common objects. They form spontaneous hunting packs without hierarchical command. And worst of all, the intelligence hunter hesitated. Continue, Grathnak ordered. They appear to enjoy confronting death. They make jokes in combat situations. They compete for the most creative kills. It's unsettling. The Supreme Hunter studied the footage playing before them, humans laughing while setting traps, slapping each other's backs after near-death encounters, treating mortal combat like some bizarre social ritual. We will not be defeated by primitives who haven't even achieved proper space-folding technology, Grathnak declared. Prepare 3 more hunting teams. Different approach vectors, different colony targets. I want data. I want patterns. I want weaknesses. Dr. Marcus Thompson was halfway through his evening rounds at Outpost Skyreach Medical when the power went out. Perfect, he muttered, fumbling for the emergency flashlight. Just what we need during a pandemic. Skyreach was a research station orbiting Kepler 20F, dedicated to studying alien bacteria. For 6 months, they'd been battling an outbreak of something the staff nicknamed Blue Scale, a nasty infection that turned human skin leathery and azure. Not fatal, but damned uncomfortable. The backup generators should have kicked in immediately. They didn't. Marcus tapped his comm unit. Engineering, what's the status on? A wet, chittering sound from the darkened corridor cut him off. His first thought was that someone had left specimen containment open. His second thought, as a 7-foot alien predator unfolded from the shadows, was considerably less scientific. Well, shit, Marcus said, surprisingly calm despite the terror flooding his system. After months fighting microscopic killers, a macroscopic one almost seemed refreshing. The creature stalked forward, mandibles clicking in what could only be anticipation. Marcus backed up, hand fumbling for anything useful. His fingers closed around a canister of disinfectant spray. I'm guessing you're not here for a checkup? He asked, stalling for time. The alien paused, seemingly confused by his response. It raised gleaming claws. Before you do whatever you're planning, Marcus continued conversationally, I should mention you're in a quarantine zone. Whatever your species is, I have no idea if you're susceptible to the pathogens we're studying, but I wouldn't risk it. Another pause. The alien's head tilted, multiple eyes narrowing. Of course, I could examine you. Professional courtesy. Marcus gestured to an exam table. Hop up there and we'll run some tests. Make sure you don't leave with more than you bargained for. When the predator lunged, Marcus was ready. The disinfectant spray, medical grade, industrial strength, meant for killing stubborn bacteria, hit the alien directly in its cluster of eyes. The shriek that followed could have shattered glass. The creature thrashed, clawing at its own face, giving Marcus precious seconds to slam the emergency containment button. Reinforced doors slammed down, sealing the medical bay. Quarantine procedures activated, not for human protection, but for the protection of the wider universe from what they studied. Marcus grabbed a bone saw from a medical tray. I'm a doctor, he informed the writhing alien, which means I took an oath to do no harm. He activated the saw, its whine filling the sealed chamber, but that was before 6 months of fighting space plague. My ethics have gotten a bit flexible. Hunt, leader, Zexoval's mission to the orbital research station ended in retreat. His after-action report cited unexpected chemical weapons and a human combat medic with surgical implements. He didn't mention how the human had laughed while chasing him through the corridors, calling out cheerful descriptions of what various medical tools could do to alien anatomy. The second team, sent to an agricultural colony on Proxima Centauri Bar, fared no better. Their target was primarily farmers, soil tenders, who should have been easy prey. Instead, they encountered humans who turned harvesting equipment into horrifying weapons. The small one with face fur, reported a traumatized hunter, used a thresher to process Crow into component parts. While singing, the final team, dispatched to a military outpost, never returned at all. The only transmission was a human voice over the hunter's own communication channel. "Thanks for the cool weapons. We've reverse-engineered 3 already. The rest are proving a bit tricky, but we're having fun figuring them out. Send more." The Vrath Council chamber was no longer filled with shouting. Now it echoed with something worse: whispers. Conspiracy. Damn. The Supreme Hunter sent 47 hunters against the humans, one elder murmured. 7 returned. This is unprecedented. Perhaps Grathnak is losing his edge, another suggested. Perhaps new leadership is required. Inside his private chambers, Grathnak reviewed footage obsessively, searching for patterns, any weakness in these bizarre creatures. The extraction team from the agricultural colony had managed to capture partial surveillance recordings. He watched humans after losing comrades to Vrath hunters gathering in small groups, pressing their bodies together in what intelligence identified as hugging. They made sounds classified as both laughing and crying. They consumed intoxicants together and told stories about the fallen. "They draw strength from loss," Rextel observed, mandibles twitching nervously. "It's the opposite of rational behavior. When we lose hunters, efficiency decreases. When they lose pack members, their aggression and coordination increase." Grathnak's illumination patterns shifted to a troubled blue. "We must understand them better. The direct approach has failed. We need information." "The Council is growing restless," Frextel warned. "There is talk of replacing you." "Then I will give them a bold strategy," the Supreme Hunter decided. "One that will either secure my position or end it. Prepare a stealth vessel. Assemble our best infiltration specialists. We're going to Earth itself." Operation Deep Knowledge was meant to be the Vrath's greatest intelligence coup. 6 elite infiltrators, genetically modified to appear somewhat human, sent to Earth to study the creatures in their natural habitat. The infiltrators landed in a region called Minnesota, chosen for its isolated communities and climate that would justify full-body coverings to hide their still alien features. Their mission: observe humans, understand their psychology, find exploitable weaknesses. It went wrong almost immediately. Infiltrator Emrek Var, disguised as Mark, entered a structure identified as a bar to observe human socialization patterns. Within 20 minutes, he found himself participating in something called karaoke night. Within 40, he was engaged in a drinking contest with 3 human miners who found his inability to process alcohol hilarious. "You're all right, Mark," slurred one miner, slapping Rekvar's shoulder hard enough to make his disguise tech flicker. "Weird accent, though. Where'd you say you're from again?" "I am from far away," Rekvar managed, fighting the effects of the poison humans willingly consumed. "International man of mystery," another miner hooted. "Hey, you should come ice fishing with us tomorrow. Nothing like drilling holes in frozen lakes and sitting in the cold for hours to really get to know somebody." Rekvar, trained to blend in at all costs, agreed. By week's end, all 6 infiltrators had been compromised, not through discovery, but through what the Vrath would later classify as social contamination. Infiltrator Drenkol, Dennis joined a recreational pain endurance group called a hockey team and developed concerning levels of attachment to his line mates. Infiltrator Vexnara, Vanessa, became entangled in a book club that consumed intoxicants while discussing fictional scenarios, leading her to question Vrath hierarchical structures. Infiltrator Kravtik, Craig, was adopted by an elderly human female who insisted on feeding him excessive calories and asking about his love life. Their reports became increasingly incoherent. References to having fun and making friends contaminated objective analysis. The infiltrators started using human idioms and slang in their communications. The final transmission from Rekvar simply read, "Going ice fishing again this weekend. May not report. These guys are hilarious. You wouldn't believe what Bob did with the auger last time." Still gathering valuable intelligence on human behavior, of course. Supreme Hunter Grathnak stood before the High Council, his once proud posture slightly stooped, his bioluminescence dim and erratic. "The infiltration team has been compromised," he admitted. "We've lost contact with 4 members entirely. The remaining 2 refuse extraction, claiming they need more time to gather data. One has adopted a local fauna called a cat. The other has joined something called a community theatre production of Guys and Dolls. The council chamber erupted. Accusations flew. Mandibles clicked in agitation. "You've failed us," Elder Vairekenar hissed, the great wrath brought low by primitives. "Our infiltrators seduced by karaoke and potluck dinners? I moved against the humans with every strategy in our historical record," Grathnak defended himself. "None proved effective. They don't respond like proper prey. They don't even respond like proper predators. They're something else entirely. Excuses," another elder chittered. "You will be removed." The chamber doors burst open. A junior intelligence officer rushed in, a violation of sacred protocol that would normally result in immediate execution. But these were not normal times. "Supreme One," the officer gasped, "we've detected a human vessel. It's on approach to Vrath Prime. They're hailing us." Stunned silence fell. "How?" Grathnak demanded. "Our homeworld coordinates are our most guarded secret." The intelligence officer's mandibles trembled. "They claim they followed our infiltration team home. Apparently they placed tracking devices in objects called friendship bracelets that our operatives were given as gifts. On the main display screen, a human face appeared, female, middle-aged, with an expression intelligence classified as cheerfully determined. "Hello there," she said brightly. "I'm Captain Susan Wallace of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. We've been trying to figure out who's been poking around our colonies, and, well, your little spy friends were pretty easy to spot once we knew what to look for." She smiled. The entire council flinched. "I think we got off on the wrong foot here," she continued. "So we thought we'd come by for a proper introduction. We've brought gifts, cultural exchange items and such." "Oh, and we're returning your spies, most of them, anyway. Craig is staying for my mother's birthday party next month. She's really grown attached to him, and he makes the best potato salad now." Grathnak stared at the screen at this soft, seemingly defenseless creature who had casually penetrated their defenses and tracked them to their most sacred stronghold. "Why?" he finally managed. "Why not simply destroy us? You've proven capable." Captain Wallace laughed, that unsettling sound that haunted Vrath nightmares now. "Destroy you? Why would we do that? That's not how humans make first contact." Her expression turned thoughtful. "Well, not usually anyway. You did kill some of our people, so there will need to be discussions about that, but we generally prefer to make friends when possible." She leaned closer to the camera. "Besides, your infiltrators tell us you've got amazing natural technology. Those bioluminescent patterns? The chitinous adaptable armor? We'd love to learn about it. Trade opportunities, cultural exchange, maybe some joint defense initiatives against actual threats." The supreme hunter of the most feared species in 3 spiral arms found himself at a complete loss for words. Captain Wallace smiled again. "We're sending over a shuttle in about an hour. Nothing fancy, just me and a small diplomatic team. We've packed some Earth delicacies. Coffee, chocolate, something called Twinkies that your Dennis apparently can't get enough of." "Oh, and board games. Dennis says you folks need to learn about fun." The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, Elder Vairekenar turned to Grathnak, mandibles hanging loose in shock. "What?" he asked slowly. "Is a Twinkie?" Grathnak had no answer. For the first time in 8,000 years of evolutionary dominance, the Vrathka were about to become something they had never been before. Students. The diplomatic shuttle from Earth had barely docked at Vrath Prime's orbital station when the coup began. Supreme Hunter Grathnak's command codes were revoked mid-sentence as he prepared to greet the human delegation. Security drones swarmed the docking bay. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut. Throughout the vast station, alert klaxons wailed. "What's happening?" Captain Susan Wallace demanded, her diplomatic team crowding behind her as armored Vrath surrounded their shuttle. On the command deck, Elder Vairekenar seized control, his bioluminescent patterns flashing triumphant orangs. 6 loyal sub-commanders flanked him, each bearing the ceremonial blades of succession. "The Supreme Hunter has been relieved of duty," Vairekenar announced to the station's 20,000 attendants. "The Vrath do not negotiate with prey. We do not exchange cultural artifacts. We do not eat Twinkies with lesser species." His mandibles clicked in righteous fury. "Today we reclaim our identity as apex predators. Today, we remind the galaxy why it fears us. The 6 sub-commanders raised their blades in unison, a ritual not seen in 12 generations. The final hunt begins, they intoned. No mercy, no retreat, no survivors. Grathnak was dragged to a holding cell, his protests silenced by ceremonial muzzling. As they passed the human shuttle's viewport, he locked eyes with Captain Wallace. Something passed between them, a recognition perhaps that both were witnessing the death of something old and the painful birth of something new. Inside the shuttle, Lieutenant Pete Davidson, security specialist, former Force Recon, possessor of what his ex-wife called inappropriately cheerful fatalism, checked his sidearm. "So," he said brightly, "I'm guessing the dinner reservations are cancelled?" Captain Wallace ignored him, focusing on the emergency transponder. "Mayday, Earth vessel diplomatic. 1 requesting immediate assistance. Hostile takeover of Wrath Station in progress. Diplomatic team trapped in docking bay. 7. The reply came almost instantly. Diplomatic 1. This is Earth Defense Vessel Montana. Message received. ETA 47 minutes at emergency burn. 47 minutes, Wallace repeated, eyeing the Wrath soldiers cutting through the shuttle's outer airlock. Will be dissected specimens in 20. Davidson grinned, pulling a duffel bag from beneath his seat. Then I guess we'll just have to improvise. Speaking of which, who packed the diplomatic gifts? Because I may have, supplemented the Elder Vreknar's announcement echoed through every corridor of the massive station. The humans would be used for something the Brath called the demonstration, a ritual vivisection broadcast to all colonies to remind everyone that the Wrath feared nothing and dominated everything. The humans will be brought to the Grand Arena, Vreknar declared. Their strange behaviors will be catalogued, then eliminated. Their weaknesses will be exposed before all. The myth of human exceptionalism ends today. But when the security forces breached the human shuttle, they found it empty. Impossible, the squad leader chittered, mandibles twitching nervously. The seals were intact. They could not have escaped. The voice crackled over the shuttle's communication system. Actually, we absolutely could and definitely did. Your ventilation systems are super roomy. Very thoughtful design choice for guests like us. The squad leader looked up just in time to see a maintenance hatch in the ceiling slide open and a small metal canister drop down. "Fire in the hole," Davidson called cheerfully from somewhere in the ducts. The flashbang grenade, officially listed in the diplomatic manifests as a cultural illumination device, detonated with concussive force. By the time the stunned Wrath recovered their senses, the humans were long gone, vanished into the labyrinthine infrastructure of the massive station. "What do you mean, lost them?" Elder Vreknar's bioluminescence flashed dangerous crimson. "They are soft, slow prey on a station of 20,000 hunters." The security chief's antennae flattened submissively. "They've disabled the internal tracking system," honored Elder, "and they've taken hostages." "Hostages?" Vreknar's mandibles clacked in disbelief. "Wrath do not surrender to prey. Any warrior captured deserves death." "It's not warriors they've taken," the security chief clarified. "It's the hatchlings. From Care Sector 12. The humans have barricaded themselves in the nursery chamber with 64 juvenile Wrath." For the first time in his 300-year life, Vreknar felt something cold slide down his spine, something ancient genetic memory identified as dread. Inside the nursery chamber, Captain Wallace surveyed their impromptu fortress with grim satisfaction. The room was circular, defensible, with only 2 entry points. More importantly, it was filled with the next generation of Wrath chitinous younglings, who stared at the humans with multifaceted eyes wide in fascination rather than fear. "Are we really taking kids hostage?" Davidson asked quietly, helping the ship's doctor set up defensive positions. "Because that seems not super diplomatic." "We're not taking hostages," Wallace corrected, watching a small Wrath youngling cautiously approach her. "We're demonstrating a point. Besides, look at them. They're curious, not afraid." The youngling, no larger than a human 5-year-old, exoskeleton, still soft and bioluminescent patterns, shifting in gentle waves of blue and green, reached out one clawed hand toward Wallace. The captain knelt down, slowly extending her own hand. "Hello there," she said softly. The youngling's mandibles clicked in a pattern the translation software identified as laughter. It reached out with both arms in a gesture, unmistakable, across species. Wallace looked at Davidson in surprise. "I think it wants me to pick it up." "Great," the lieutenant muttered. "Let's hope its instinct to disembowel doesn't kick in mid-hug." On the command deck, Elder Vreknar watched the nursery chamber's security feed with growing horror. The humans weren't threatening the younglings, they were playing with them. "What devious tactic is this?" he demanded. The ship's xenopsychologist, recently arrived from the science decks, clicked nervously. "It's not a tactic, Honored Elder. I believe they're bonding with the hatchlings." On screen, Captain Wallace sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by fascinated Vrith younglings. She appeared to be telling them a story, complete with exaggerated hand gestures. The younglings' bioluminescence pulsed in synchronized patterns of delight. In another corner, Lieutenant Davidson had improvised some kind of game involving small objects. The translator identified them as jacks that tested the younglings' reflexes and coordination. Every successful catch was met with encouraging words and something called a high five. "This is unprecedented," the xenopsychologist whispered. "Our younglings normally respond to strangers with defensive postures, but they're treating these humans as caregivers." "It's manipulation," Vreknar insisted. "Some kind of psychological warfare." "With respect, Honored Elder, I don't believe it is. Look at their biochemical readings." He pointed to data scrolling beside the video feed. "The humans are producing oxytocin and other bonding hormones. They're genuinely forming attachments to our youngling." Vreknar's mandibles clicked in agitation. "Prepare the strike team. We end this now." Captain Wallace's communicator chirped. "Captain, this is Montana. We're 20 minutes out and accelerating. Hang tight." "Acknowledged, Montana," she replied, gently detaching a particularly affectionate youngling from her arm. "Be advised, the situation has evolved. We're in the nursery section with approximately 60 Vrith children. Repeat, we are with their children. Weapons free is not, repeat, not authorized." The silence that followed spoke volumes. "Understood, Captain," Montana's commander finally responded. Switching to diplomatic extraction protocols, Davidson approached, his uniform now decorated with glowing handprints from younglings who had discovered their own bioluminescence could temporarily transfer to human skin. "Company's coming," he reported, nodding toward the security sensors they'd repurposed. "I count 20 armed Varth approaching the main entrance." "Another team setting up at the service corridor." Wallace nodded, unsurprised. "Right on schedule." She turned to address their impromptu alien playgroup. "Okay, kids, time for a new game. It's called Hide the Humans. Very fun, very exciting." The Vrath strike team breached the nursery chamber with textbook precision, flash suppressors on their weapons, tactical formation perfect, each warrior moving with the coordinated grace that had made them the galaxy's most feared predators. They found the chamber transformed. The younglings had constructed an elaborate maze of sleeping mats, educational equipment, and furniture. Signs in both human and Vrath script marked different sections: the quiet forest, danger swamp, home base. From somewhere deep in the makeshift labyrinth, a youngling's voice called out, "You'll never find us, Elder Grumpy Mandibles." The strike team leader's antennae twitched in confusion. This was not protocol. This was not how prey behaved when cornered. "Secure the perimeter," he ordered. "Find the humans. Do not harm the younglings." His warriors spread out, weapons ready, moving cautiously through the bizarre landscape. None of them noticed the small recording devices placed strategically throughout the chamber, standard-issue diplomatic equipment, now broadcasting everything to every screen on the station. In his holding cell, the deposed Grathnak watched the feed with growing fascination. He had failed to understand humans through study and combat. Perhaps there was another way. A small sound drew his attention to the cell door, where the locking mechanism was silently disengaging. When the door slid open, a human female in Earth Diplomatic Corps uniform stood there. Dr. Eliza Wright, xenoanthropologist. "Supreme Hunter," she whispered, "we need to talk." Back in the nursery, the game of Hide the Humans had evolved. Now the younglings were hiding too, popping out to startle the increasingly frustrated warriors with chittering laughs before disappearing again into the maze. "This is not combat," one warrior complained. "This is absurd." "It's called playing," Captain Wallace's voice echoed from somewhere nearby. "Your kids are naturals at it. Probably because you never let them do it." The warrior spun. weapon raised, only to find a youngling standing there instead, bioluminescence flickering in what could only be described as a giggle. "Bang!" said the youngling, pointing a claw. "You're eliminated." Throughout the station, thousands of Wrath watched the broadcast in stunned silence. They witnessed their elite warriors reduced to playing chase with their own children. They saw humans, the prey species that should have been cowering in terror, orchestrating a game that made a mockery of Wrath hunting protocol. And strangest of all, they saw their younglings laughing, a sound many adult Vroth had forgotten existed. On the command deck, Elder Vrekenar watched his authority crumbling in real time. The security teams were reporting bizarre behavior throughout the station. Warriors were hesitating. Questions were being asked. And worse, much worse, some were laughing. "This ends now," he snarled, activating the emergency protocols. "Flood the nursery chamber with paralytic gas. We'll sort out the younglings afterward." "Belay that order," came a voice from the entrance. Grathnak stood there, unbound, flanked by Dr. Wright and two Wrath warriors, whose bioluminescence patterns declared their loyalty to the former Supreme Hunter. "You are relieved of command, Elder," Grathnak stated calmly. "By your own protocols." Vrekenar's mandibles clacked in outrage. "On what grounds?" "Evolutionary failure," Grathnak replied. "You would sacrifice our future to preserve our past." He gestured to Dr. Wright, who activated a holographic display. Images flashed. The younglings playing with humans, the warriors joining reluctantly, then with growing enthusiasm, the station's biochemical monitors showing cascading changes in hormone levels throughout the Wrath population. "The humans aren't exceptional because they're stronger or smarter," Grathnak explained. "They're exceptional because they never forgot something our species evolved past: joy in connection." Dr. Wright stepped forward. "Your species evolved for perfect predation, which meant eliminating emotional attachments, individualism, play behavior. It made you efficient killers, but it created a blind spot. Humans," Grathnak continued, "weaponized what we discarded. They form bonds under pressure. They find humor in terror. They create attachment in chaos. It's not a weakness, it's their evolutionary advantage." Vrekenar's bioluminescence dimmed. "So we should become what? Soft? Playful? Prey?" "No," Grathnak replied. "We should become complete." The Montana arrived to find not a hostage situation but a cultural revolution in progress. Captain Wallace and her team were escorted to the command deck, not as prisoners but as honored guests. Throughout the station, Wrath of all ranks were experiencing something many had never known: community without hierarchy, connection without purpose, joy without conquest. In the grand arena, where the humans were to have been publicly dissected, Grathnak instead addressed the assembled thousands. Beside him stood Captain Wallace and the Earth delegation, along with Dr. Wright, who had secretly been studying the Wrath for years. "For 8,000 years, Grathnak began, "we have defined ourselves by what we hunt. Today, we begin defining ourselves by what we build." He turned to Captain Wallace. "The humans have shown us something we forgot, that true evolutionary success comes not from dominating others, but from adapting ourselves." Wallace stepped forward. "And you've shown us something too, that change is possible, even for a species that thought its path was fixed." From the audience, a small voice called out, "Can we play hide the humans again?" Laughter, human and Wrath, filled the ancient chamber that had known only the sounds of ritual and submission for millennia. 6 months later, a Wrath diplomatic vessel entered Earth orbit. Its commander, the newly titled Ambassador Grathnak, transmitted the formal greeting, "We come seeking connection, not conquest." Across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, species that had lived in terror of Wrath hunting parties watched in disbelief as the apex predators established cultural exchanges, trade agreements, and something unprecedented, joint scientific missions with humans. The Wraith had not become soft. They remained formidable, their natural weapons and hunting skills undiminished. But they had regained something their evolution had sacrificed for combat efficiency: the ability to form bonds beyond the hierarchical, to find value in cooperation rather than domination. And the humans? They remained paradoxical, capable of both startling violence and profound compassion, often in the same individual. They taught the Wrath to play games and tell jokes. They introduced them to music and art, and the concept of just hanging out. In return, the Wrath taught humans about efficient resource management. extraordinary biological adaptations, and the value of ritual in maintaining social cohesion. Other species observed this unprecedented partnership with caution, then curiosity, then tentative participation. Within a decade, what began as a failed hunt had evolved into the foundation of a new galactic community. In the newly established Interspecies Academy on Proxima Centauri by Professor Jake Wilson, formerly security guard Jake Wilson of New Dakota Mining Colony, concluded his famous lecture on the psychology of first contact. The Wrath thought humans were exceptional because we weren't afraid to die, he told the mixed audience of humans. Wrath and a dozen other species once terrorized by Wrath hunting parties. But that wasn't it at all. We weren't exceptional because we weren't afraid. We were exceptional because we transformed our fear into connection. He grinned at a particular Wrath in the front row, one missing a primary arm, replaced with an articulated prosthetic. "Isn't that right, Kravnor?" The former hunt leader's bioluminescence flickered with what everyone now recognized as the Wrath equivalent of a rueful smile. "Indeed, you humans taught us something no prey had ever shown us before, that survival isn't the purpose of existence, connection is." Jake nodded. "And you taught us something too, that even the most feared predator in the galaxy can change its nature." "Not change," Kravnor corrected. "Remember, we remembered what we had forgotten in our evolution, that before we were hunters, we were simply alive. And being alive means more than simply not dying." In the back of the lecture hall, a group of Vorth younglings played quietly with human children, their bioluminescent patterns synchronized in the unmistakable rhythm of shared joy. The galaxy's most feared predators hadn't been defeated by superior firepower or technology. They had been transformed by the one force they had never encountered in 8,000 years of evolutionary dominance: the strange, illogic, wonderful human capacity to find connection in the face of terror, to forge bonds in the shadow of death, and to respond to the universe's indifferent cruelty with defiant shared laughter. They had been conquered by friendship, and they couldn't have been happier about it.